What a great day to be talking to Davin Bellamy after a great win for Georgia against Texas. We're a little late getting to Davin, so we'll jump to that here right now. Davin, you've been calling for it all year long. You wanted to see better performance from this Georgia defense, and we knew they had it in them. You know, this very talented team filled with talented players, and boy, they really picked a great chance to put it on display. I just thought they were a dominant unit against what is still, even if Art's not quite what he's supposed to be and whatever else, this is still a very good Texas offense. How impressed were you by what you saw from this Georgia defense on Saturday?
Man, I was very impressed, man. I mean, the game plan, for Texas was just done, perfectly. If you can't get them on the ground, like we spoke about on Thursday was, just keep him in the pocket. A lot of his big plays are him, extending plays, finding guys downfield. And I know a lot of people, talked about his last two games that he threw for, 300 plus yards, but a lot of those were get the ball out quick and let the wide receiver do majority of the work. Through my film study, I just saw that, I don't know if it's because he's a young guy and they put so much on his plate because of his last name, but they don't simplify the game for him. He really struggles when you start to do different things on third down, not your normal four down lineman. And I don't think his pre-snap and post-snap knowledge is there right now. And I think Georgia just, took advantage of that. We've always, talked about this D-line is not getting a lot of sacks. And I remember a couple weeks ago, I started to see the play calling change where the defensive coordinator, he now understands that I don't have a guy that can just go out there and win the one-on-one and give me, 7 to 10 sacks. So we have to thoroughly break down the tape and put out a third down package of plays that can get us off the field. And we started to see Georgia do that about 3-4 weeks ago. Now that we're in week 9 and you saw it last week, their third down blitz packages is just perfect. And it's allowing guys that can't win one-on-ones to take advantage of, the offensive, play call. So I just think the defense played perfect. Glenn Schumann put a great game plan together, and these guys are growing up, right in front of our eyes.
Speaking of growing up, there's some individual players who I just think have really raised their level over the course of the season. I'm thinking about Quintavious Johnson, who had a sack on Saturday. Gabe Harris, who had a sack on Saturday. DeMello Jones, the cornerback spot, has the great choke slam style tackle.
Right.
Kirby's complimented Georgia's physicality. If you've got cornerbacks making tackles like that, then your head coach is well within his rights to call his team physical, as far as I'm concerned. But, the trio that I mentioned, and I could say many more, it's an example of what appears to be a Georgia team that has really gotten better as the season's gone along because a lot of individual players have raised their level. How impressed have you been with that? The way in which guys who were in an expanded role this season
Right.
have grown into that role as
Right.
the season's progressed.
Well, now that I'm doing, this film breakdown, I'm breaking down film from week 1 all the way to now. So, I can even notice some of the little things that aren't being showing up, on tape of these guys getting better. And through that, film breakdown, you couldn't really see it translate to the field, but they were doing little things week by week and just, fixing things. Even when it comes to the pass rush games, we try to run games against Bama, and we got guys running into each other, falling on the ground. Well, you saw the pass rush plan last week. We're running games, and they're getting home. Quinn Johnson and Gabe Harris got sacks off games. So that's running the game, with the D tackle. And just like we've been saying all year, reps are your best friend. I don't care. It's only a select few of guys that are coming out of high school. And we're talking about Javion Clowney's, Robert Condichi's, Jalen Carter's, Jordan Davis, guys of that nature. Usually when they step on campus, they're ready to go. But when we start talking about stars, it takes reps to get better. I don't care if you are a 5-star. So if a player is looking better week 8 than he did week 7, then that's a plus. He's supposed to look better. So with a young team just getting reps, the game starts to slow down for you a little bit. When the game starts, you're not as nervous as you used to be. You understand now that if I just do my job, I can make plays. And you're starting to see that this defense is getting real, comfortable. And it's just a great thing to see, especially around playoff time. This defense has always been good at stopping the run. We've been asking for them to get more sacks. But just because they wasn't getting sacks, it doesn't mean they was a bad defense. We've always been able to stop the run. It's just been trying to get off third down. Now that we're finally starting to get to the quarterback, it looks a lot better.
Now, there's also still at least room for some concern. And for Georgia right now, a lot of that centers around the health of C.J. Allen. We don't know exactly how long Allen's going to be out. We have reason to believe it's at least going to be a couple of weeks. Kirby Smart has only called it week to week. So no Charlotte for sure. I mean, just deductive reasoning would lead me to believe won't play against Georgia Tech either, which means you're questioning into the postseason now too. And so for Georgia fans, you've come to view C.J. Allen, the linebacker, as a heart and soul type player for you and a very, very important leader, including a guy that just makes a ton of plays. He's more than just a leader. He's also a top player too. How tough is it going to be, Davin, do you think, for Georgia to weather the storm of, at least for a few weeks, not having C.J. Allen out there?
I usually say, next man up, but, he's one of those guys that, you can't just really say that, especially, in the same breath of I've said we've improved our, ways of getting to the quarterback, and he's been included. Another thing that Glenn Schumann has noticed that is if my D-line can't get there, then let's start blitzing my linebackers on third down, and him and Rajan Wilson have been doing a great job of just attacking their matchups against running backs on third and long when we're blitzing and getting hits, on the quarterback. But he's that eraser. He's wearing number 3 for a reason. He's the leader. So this is a big loss for us, man. But I'm pretty positive that in a Coach Smart locker room, there's a guy that's ready to go.
No, I think that's exactly right. And one of the guys we've seen is like Zayden Walker,
Zayden Walker, yeah, for sure. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
Seeing more of him, and obviously guys like Chris Cole and Justin Williams, really good there too. So they've clearly got the depth, but just
exactly
the experience that a guy like C.J. Allen brings to the table. Let me switch to the other side of the ball for a moment. We talked about this a little earlier. Georgia is just converting its red zone trips right now at an amazing clip. A lot of that's Gunnar Stockton with his legs. Georgia's running the ball pretty well, but when given a chance to score, this is one of the more efficient Georgia offenses we've seen. And, we talk about defense a lot because that's the side of the ball you obviously were so good on as a player. But to flip it to the other side here for a moment, how impressed have you been with what you've seen Georgia offensively too?
They're tough to defend, man. They're tough to defend. The number one rule about, playing a mobile quarterback is when you get in the red zone, they are the most dangerous, and I always like to say this stat, because I heard it from Greg Williams, who always try to make sure when we get in the red zone, do not try to go get a sack against a scrambling QB. But he always says quarterback runs go up 80% in the red zone. So when you just have that threat of a quarterback, especially when we start talking about all the weapons that we have, Bobo is doing a great job of just creating shotgun, Gunnar Stockton, Nate Frazier, or Chauncey Bowens next to me, Lucky, or the other avatar, Delp, right there. And it puts the linebacker, in a position of, if Gunnar Stockton does this, is he going to hand off to Nate Frazier? The linebacker has to think about that. But also in that same play, the linebacker, he has to think about, what if he pulls it and runs out the back door? Just not that. He also got to think about, what if he pulls it, act like he's going to run it, and throw it to the first rounder? So it's so many just weapons. And you can't forget, I got a 6'5" receiver in Noah Thomas that I can throw a fade ball to. So just all the weapons. I mean, this staff has done a great job of making Gunner's job a lot easier. He doesn't have to go into Batman mode a lot. He only does it when he needs to. But he has so many weapons. He has a physical line of scrimmage that if we get in the red zone, I can just hand it off to them and they'll blow you off the ball. So this team has been built perfectly for the style of QB that Gunner is. And speaking from a defensive end, just when they get in the red zone, it's tough. And I always love to compare it to, I know we probably got some young listeners who probably don't remember this, but Dunvick Duckett. When you got that three-headed monster back there, like the Falcons used to have, back in the early 2000s, it just put the defense in a lot of precarious situations.
Well, I'll say one more thing about Gunner, then we'll let you go. When the season began, and going back to his time a year ago, clearly to me, Gunner was a quarterback who could run. And to me, there's a difference between a quarterback who can run and a running quarterback. And I thought that Gunner was probably a quarterback who could run, sneak out and get you a few yards here and there. But I don't know that I saw him as a quote unquote running quarterback. And he's still not Vic or Lamar Jackson, somebody like that. But my gosh, when you look at the touchdown he got against Texas and the touchdown that he got, the rushing score against Ole Miss, Davin, now, to me, he is more than just the quarterback who can run, who can slip out and get you a couple of yards if you're not paying attention to him. All of a sudden now, he's making guys miss. That he really looks like a true running quarterback. And as you said, especially in that red zone area where the running quarterback becomes even more valuable.
Yeah. His style of running, I wouldn't say it's electric like Lamar Jackson, Michael Vick, Cam Newton. Those guys were on a different level. Those guys were superior, athletes. Gunner is just that scrambler where it reminds me of Jalen Hurts. If the opportunity is there, he's going to get in the box. But what we're starting to see late in the season is when he get outside that pocket, he's just doing it very, efficiently. If it's 3rd and 8, I'm going to go get 9 yards and get down. If we're in the red zone and it's about 15 yards and I can get in the box, I can show you that I can make one man miss and get vertical. So he's just picking his spots very well. And it reminds me of Jalen Hurts. When you start having those dynamic running, QBs, it's almost like a gift and a curse. Because a guy like Lamar Jackson or Michael Vick, they may scramble, get the first down, but then try to turn it into a touchdown. Now somebody coming from behind and knocking the ball out. Or they're taking hits and they don't last the full season. He's doing just what Jalen Hurts does. 3rd and 8, go get the first down, slide before anybody can get a hit on you. That is way more frustrating to a defense because it's a death by 1,000 cuts. But he also shows you, if we get in that high red area, I can make one man miss, and get in the end zone. This guy's playing unbelievable football. I didn't know that he had all this in his tool belt until I seen the Tennessee game, and I also saw that he can beat you from the pocket. And now that we're starting to see it's getting late into the season, this guy's he's not even a one-read run guy, anymore. He's going to his first read, then second read, and now he's taking off in the pocket with his eyes downfield. That touchdown to Noah Thomas, not Texas, but the week before, the guy rolled out, step up in the pocket, deliver a ball. We're seeing a guy where the game is starting to slow down. And he's starting to realize that everything I did in high school, I can do it now. And that's the best thing for, a player. This guy's playing lights out. In my opinion, he's the best QB, in college football.
Well, I'll say this too. You make the comparison to Jalen Hurts, and listen, I get how strong Jalen Hurts is, but honestly, I don't think people realize how similarly Gunner is built to Jalen Hurts. They're both about 6'1". Hurts has probably got about 10 pounds on him. And listen, I don't deny Jalen Hurts' lower half, man, he's as strong as maybe any quarterback that we've seen in the NFL. But look at how Gunner's built. Not to get too, into his business.
No, for sure. No.
He's got big, thick legs. He's got a big lower half too. The Gunner's actually built a little bit more like Jalen Hurts, I think, than some people probably realize.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. I mean, when you look at his lower half, this guy is, put together. He's not the quarterback that's in the weight room on Monday squats doing the armband. He getting up and he used to squat with the D lineman. And you can tell that. I mean, because when he gets to the second level, DBs struggle to get him on the ground. And that also helps when he's in the pocket. It's hard. Some quarterbacks are easy to sack, and some quarterbacks are tough to go down. Cam Newton, Jalen Hurts, Ben Roethlisberger, Gunnar Stockton. I mean, I could just go on and on. So even when he takes sacks, he's able to muscle his way back to the line of scrimmage where it's not detrimental, to the drive. It's a 1 yard gain or it's not a loss at all. So even his preparation, in the weight room, and that's what I heard, he lifts with the guys. He's not one of those QBs that doesn't want to sweat and just want to do resistance band. He want to squat. He want to deadlift. And it's starting to show up because his physicality when he runs the ball, along with our running backs, along with the O-line, is just a brand of physical football. Yeah. Where even if my quarterback tucks it, he's looking to run somebody over in the second level. So, I mean, it's just perfect for the team right now. Well put together team.
I love it, Davin. Great analysis. Really appreciate that. Always enjoy the conversation with you. Thanks for being here today. And as you said, you're always breaking this stuff down there on social media and your accounts. If people want to find more from you, how can they do so?
Davin Bellamy, 17 on IG, One Love Media on YouTube, and Davin Bellamy, 17 on Twitter, man. And I always appreciate it. And go Dogs, baby.
Go Dogs, Davin. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, baby.